Keep it PG. This is a family podcast.
Listen,
It's not.
It just
it's
happens.
for adults.
If you can't handle a word here or there, this may be not for you.
Wow, wow, I got that wow, wow. Anything that I want, I'ma get it now. Yeah, wow, wow.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Clickworthy Convos, brought to you by The Marketing Perspective. I'm your host, MD Klein, here with my co-host, Mo Connors. And today we are going to talk about the rapid pace of change, trends that are changing super fast. How do you make sure that you are on your A game and staying on top of everything that's going on, keeping a pulse on the industry when life is chaos as it is?
I mean, it's tough, right? Like, I think when we look at marketing in general, right? And really since email, the rise of, digital paid media, now with the introduction of AI, right? Like the pace of change within marketing, the pace of capabilities, it's coming at us, I feel like, at 100 miles an hour. So how are you sorting through, like, what are new platforms that could be relevant to the business? What are new tactics that could be out there? What is a new efficient way that I can use AI to help streamline the work that we're doing and to eliminate some of those tasks that take a long time, but that maybe AI can help with? I feel like today and now more than ever, it is hard to try to stay on top of everything that's going on.
I agree. And I think that I feel like we're now in this constant state of learning. Whereas then before, we would almost learn in waves, like there would be something big and revolutionary. And now it's like a constant always on thing that we have to like maintain and keep up with. And no one has time for that. I know I don't have time. Like, I wish I had time, and now I kind of have the time for it. But like when I was working 14 hours a day, when was I supposed to fit that in? I want to stay on top of things, but like, when do you fit that in?
I think it comes down to a couple of things. There's so many different ways that you can learn, I think, is the first thing, and so many different places where you can get the information. Probably the first thing is figuring out like what format works for you. There are people who prefer to read and sit down and read, either a long form article or something like that. For me, I spend a lot of time multitasking. So folding laundry, watching hockey practice, things like that. And so for me, podcasts or videos are a really good way for me to learn, because I can be active and doing something while also listening to kind of keep up to date. So that's a really good way for me to stay updated, where sitting down and having the time to sort of read through things isn't always my best option.
And I would say I'm the complete opposite of that. Like, I can't listen to a podcast or a video and do something else because I won't be paying attention to it. So in order for me to be taking something away from whatever I'm listening to or watching, I need to be engaged in actively listening. I don't really have a routine or a way to do this yet, but I just doom scroll at night. And it's LinkedIn posts, and sometimes I'll save them and think that I'll go back to them later. Most of the time I don't. It's hard for me to listen to podcasts while I'm doing something else or driving in the car. I know people that listen to them while they work. I wish I could, but that just doesn't work for me.
I don't know how people listen while they're working. I can't think about something completely different while ingesting audio that I need to learn. Like, I have to focus. But I think it's different. Like, I could listen to music and work and know the song I'm listening to, but I'm not exactly listening to it. I don't know if I could do that with a podcast. I feel like that's like learning by osmosis to some degree.
Right. And are you even really listening or paying attention to it? Or is it just kind of like background noise? I know some people don't like silence, so they want to have some type of, whether it's music or podcast or, something going on in the background. So they think they're consuming it. And that's the other thing. Like, with the amount of content that we're flooded with on a regular basis, are we even retaining any of it? How do you know what sources are good, what you should be paying attention to? Filtering through all that, I think, is another task in and of itself before you get to the content.
I agree. I think one of the other things that's important for people to know is it's not also just about the content that you consume when you're sitting at your desk or when you're multitasking and listening to podcasts. Like one of the places that you keep up to date, hopefully people's companies sponsor it, but if they don't, there's a ton of free versions of it. But going to a conference that's a marketing conference, they're going to be talking about the latest things. A couple of years ago, I want to say 2022, I think the hot thing was the metaverse, right? And then I went to a conference last year and nobody talked about the metaverse, right? Everything was about, AI and how it was up and coming, machine learning, ways that you can use it. And that's how fast like things pivot. So I do think conferences, webinars are a great way for you to be able to stay up to date. And for webinars, if you sign up for it, a lot of times, even if you miss the actual webinar itself, they'll send you a recording. So then you can watch it on your own schedule. But I think that's another good way when we think about content, like shouldn't just be about what you do in your own time, but I think it's also carving out time to go to conferences and to attend things where you can talk to peers, where you can see experts in the field speak, and you can kind of pick and choose the trends over the couple of days of the conference, whether they're in person or virtual.
I think it was last year, I made my team attend the Figma conference virtually, and we were all remote at the time, and I didn't have time to attend. I wanted to, but like there were so many different good sessions, and they kind of divided and conquered amongst themselves and didn't catch every session, but by the end of it, they were able to knowledge share and teach back. And I think one of the guys on the team compiled notes to even share with you. And I remember sending those to you of just like highlights, like these are the biggest things happening and upcoming with this tool that we use on a regular basis. So it was helpful for me. It was a good way to engage employees that, may feel isolated in a remote environment because they were kind of all talking about it in real time in the sessions that they went to, almost as if they were there together. And I think it's time well spent. Like, were they missing out on quote unquote working hours? Sure. But I think that's just as important as the work itself and staying on top of things and knowing what's ahead to be able to stay ahead.
I agree. And I think that's one of the things, right? There's a tool that your team was using day in and day out, right? Those tools are not static. You don't buy them one time and that's all you get, right? They're constantly doing add-ons. They're constantly adding new features. I mean, we pretty much use Slack all the time, right? How often do you go into Slack and they say, we've introduced something new, right? Like there's this new thing. Going to, conferences or learning sessions on the tools that you use, to me is like, it's even just a non-starter. Like if you work with Salesforce, if you work with Adobe, they have conferences, they have education sessions. You should be going to those things and taking advantage of that learning because that's just going to make you more proficient in the tools that you're using and the capabilities that you could be taking advantage of. I can't tell you how often I've seen people, working in tools that don't really know exactly how to use them and aren't staying up with the latest releases, the latest capabilities and things like that. Again, it's not easy, but that's a big disservice to yourself, I think, and to the tool.
That stuff makes me excited. Like I'm always excited to see a new release or something coming soon or something in beta. Like I'm always trying to get on that list. I might not use it or have the time to like fully dig into it. I think that's something. And this new pace of change, although it can be intimidating, is something that has made the industry really exciting. To just be like, wow, there's so many new things to dig into. What should I dig into? Where do I start? And I think that can help guide the sources that you follow or engage with to really get the content that's useful and valuable to you. And it's time well spent and not just the doom scroll.
To me, the doom scroll in a lot of my stuff, I get a lot of ads in there. You're going to get a lot of ebooks. You're going to get a lot of different things that come through. Like very quickly, you need to be able to identify, I fell into this. It was like the top 10 uses for AI in marketing. I was like, oh, this is great. This is great. We talk about AI all the time. I love a top 10 list. It's like quick, consumable. I just skim it. If there's anything I want to read, I downloaded it and it looked like it was written by AI. And it was top 10 things of how people have been using AI in the last 2 years. Like nothing about like what's new and what should pivot. I looked at it pretty quickly and was like, not worth my time. Gave it a skin, discarded it. So you've got to be able to not stick with something that's going to take 5-10 minutes of your time. You got to be able within, I think, like a minute of looking at something, be able to say, not for me.
Yeah. And I think ultimately starting at a place of knowing what you want to get out of it. Like, do you want to identify a new tool or platform for either yourself or the organization that you're working with to try to sell in? Do you want to learn what's coming up, what other brands are doing? Like, what information are you seeking out to then kind of filter through where you should go to get that information?
Also, feel free to cheat a little bit. I cheat a little bit. We're not going to do a brands we love segment, but I will do kind of tools I love that help me cheat a little bit. Perplexity is one. I can go in at any time in Perplexity and, we type in, can you summarize for me the hot marketing trends in 2025? And they pull sources from the internet where they even, they give you the little 1, 2, 3, they give you the reference point. You can link out to the article, but they summarize the trends. They put them in a table for you. And then you can then choose, they give you things like, which of these do you want to click down into? So, personalization is one that comes up all the time, hyper-personalization. Then it'll say like, do you want to learn more about hyper-personalization? And you can kind of click into it. And so that can actually take you down like an interesting rabbit hole, even through using Perplexity. I think they do a really good job of kind of laying everything out, making it simple, making it digestible, giving you then the information you need if you want to go deeper onto a topic. It gives you an easy way to then say, okay, let me show you sort of the 5 things that go along with hyper-personalization. Let me give you the 5 things that go along with this data question that you have. I think it's really good. And the second tool, which is really just a cheat, but when you have like a 3 or 4 page article, it's TLDR this, which is too long, didn't read this. You can just dump that article, copy that article in, and it summarizes it. And what do you always say? It gives me the Spark Notes for it. Those are tools that you can have up. That's a quick way for you to digest the information if you don't have time to read it all. Or, you basically just want the summary, right? Just tell me what this said in 4 bullets. 4 crisp bullets, if you will.
Exactly. I love a Spark Notes. Go back to the ancient days of like paper books. That's what Spark Notes was. It was like the cheat sheet to whatever book or thing you were reading. And that's what I loved about it. It was just quick, skimmable. I got the point really fast. And I think that, at least I've been noticing recently on LinkedIn, people are kind of doing that themselves and really knowledge sharing and boiling it down. Like there are a lot of, the top 10 things in AI you can use ChatGPT for, but at the same time, people are also sharing their quick wins of different ways that they've used AI or used a tool or best practices, prompts, that type of stuff that really actually is helpful. I think just personal knowledge sharing can also be a great source, especially if you trust the people that it's coming from. Like I know I send you stuff all the time.
Yeah. And if it's an article, I read about 40% of them. But I scan them all.
Every time I send the text, I'm like, she's definitely not going to read this. She's definitely not even going to click on this. But good to know.
And how often do I respond like, great info, like 4 seconds after you said it. And you're like, she definitely didn't have time to read this. I just scan it.
I know it.
I think we talked a little bit about carving out the time, right? And I think you have to look at your day and figure out where you can fit in those pockets. A commute's fine, but for me, I had a 5-minute commute and now I have no commute. So commute no longer is it for me. So I've had to find other times. I know that people have tried to earmark, a half an hour during their day to say like, this is the time where I'm going to, scroll through LinkedIn. I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to basically focus time for just learning and education. I think that that's valuable as well. We asked a question on LinkedIn, right? And we got some responses from folks for how they consume content.
The majority of responses we got was either a podcast a day or a podcast while multitasking. That seems to be a very common practice that people use while, getting ready, commuting, doing whatever it might be, going on a walk, sitting at the practice. I think the other one was social, LinkedIn, and I think Instagram has a lot of creative and tech brands that are doing stuff on there. I think another good response that we got was following brands in real time and seeing what they're doing and how they're doing it and what those trends are. Then I think there were some top newsletters that people found valuable, but podcast and multitasking really was I think the top response that we got.
Who's your favorite? Like, who's somebody who is a go-to for you?
I like Matt Davies. He's a brand consultant. I like him because he is very authentic. He's not trying to push his brand out there. He's just kind of putting out his honest thoughts about brand and brand strategy and his experiences of the workshops he's facilitating and, sharing ebooks and education and willing to really engage with his network. So he's someone that posts things that, at least for me, are valuable. I think we listened to his podcast once, and it was one of those times where we sat and intentionally listened to the podcast, but we took a lot away from it, not only from a information perspective, but also just what are other people doing in the industry? We're doing a podcast. How are these things going? And you may not have done that if we weren't together, but it got me to do it. You kind of had to do it. I think it was time well spent.
I actually agree with that. And I think that that's another way to consume information. Like, people have team meetings. What if you watch a podcast or you have people read an article and you come and talk about it? Those are all really interesting ways that you can make sure as a leader, your team continues to learn. It might require you to go out and find things, or you make it part of your team. You rotate it once a week. Somebody needs to bring some industry podcasts, industry articles, something like that they think is relevant to driving their business forward. I think it's super interesting. So I agree. I actually think Matt Davies is a great one, particularly on brand and marketing. And, Simon Taylor is another one. He's an influencer in the fintech space. He writes a lot about what companies are doing, different things like that. And I find, like, for anybody who's in fintech or financial services or interested in, he's somebody that's great to follow. I think he doesn't pull any punches, and
my favorite kind of people.
I find a lot of his takes pretty refreshing.
Yeah, Mark Ritson is another one that's similar, who is very blunt, honest, does not hold back on his takes, and I think that's the stuff that people need to hear, or at least that I find the most valuable, because it's real. It's not just trying to promote a product, make a sale, get some likes. I always value the information that I can do something with.
And Mark Ritson's also British, so it feels like even when he's giving a hot take, it does sound lovely. Carving out time, super important. We talked a little bit about, like, hey, you're sending me stuff all the time. You could do teach backs to your team. I think the important thing is, like, when you're consuming this information, like, what are you doing with it? Knowing that everybody struggles across to figure out, like, what is the right information. I feel like if you're out there and you're looking at information, like, I see a couple of people in my network on LinkedIn who share stuff when they find that gem. You know what I mean? I think that there's an obligation too. I have a trusted network that's on LinkedIn. And when somebody shares something, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, this is probably going to be something that's relevant for me. So I think sharing those articles, whether you're sharing it out on LinkedIn to a broader network, or to your point, when you had your team attend the Figma conference, like, they came back and they shared their learnings. Mm-hmm. Like, that is something that I think is a non-negotiable for companies who are sending people to conferences, for sure.
Absolutely. Speaking of, I recently just posted an article on LinkedIn, so you should probably check that out. One of my favorite people in the industry, Nils Leonard, the founder of Uncommon Creative Studio, he says later means never. That's one of their core values, I guess you would say. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with, what do you do with the content that you find? Like, once you come across the gem or the tool or whatever it might be, what are you doing with it? If I find a true gem or something that's interesting or unique, or I think is going to be valuable, I will do something with it that instant. I will get the ebook, sign up, like, get the newsletter, go to the website of the tool, make sure to save it, bookmark it, because if I don't do it in that moment, I'm likely never going to do it. I'm not going to go back to it. I'm going to forget about it. in 5 seconds. So if you do find something that you think is valuable, whether you carved out the time or not, spend 5 minutes digging into it a little bit to just see if it's something worth investing more time looking into.
I do agree, later never comes. I can't tell you how many browsers I have open with articles that I plan to read later.
Oh, yeah.
And usually I just get to a point 2 weeks later where I close them out.
You end up in a place where you have no idea what all the tabs are, but they're still up there. You can't close out. You don't want to lose them.
Can't close out. I'm committed till I have to reboot. I'm committed. They'll stay open forever.
Same.
But you know, it's interesting because we're talking about a lot of like, how do you consume the content? But I think the other thing is that when you're consuming that content, I think you should think about, how can I apply this to my life right now, right? To my job, to my something. It doesn't have to be in a major way. It's not like, hey, I went to this Figma training and now, and you're using Canva, let's say, and I'm going to switch everything over now to
Canva?
I know, not your favorite, but I'm going to switch everything over now to Figma, right? Figure out how you can apply a small test. So if that's like a trial for a software switch to see if it works for you, or if it's, putting together a plan for a small test, if you're going to try to branch out to a new channel that you're hearing from, or, we just mentioned Perplexity and you're going to want to try to use that. Like, start small, come up with a small test plan to figure out how you can not only take the content, but activate it and bring it to life and start using that in day to day. Like, great if you can find the time to consume it. It's great if you can share it. But if you're consuming it, sharing it, but then you're not applying it in your day to day life in some way or have a plan to apply it, there has to be an end goal in there. So that's the one thing I do want to make sure, like, if you're consuming all of this content on digital media buying and you're a direct mail specialist, there could be things that are just on the opposite side. So you do want to think about, how do I consume things that are relevant in the moment and that I can use to make my results better, increase my conversion, and do all those things that make you more successful at your job.
That was a mic drop moment right there. With my team, I remember we were looking to make the email process more efficient. And we were using Figma and we had a process in place and everything was being coded from scratch with all of the tools and AI and all of these things. Like, there had to be a better way. And so that was, to your point, the end goal that I gave to the team is like, let's find a more efficient way to do this so that we can have more creative freedom, deliver quickly so there's faster speed to market and we can respond quicker to things when they happen. We can do more new things more often. So they had all of those kind of check boxes in mind as they were doing this research, exploring new tools, seeing what might work, what might not work. And I was fully behind them spending time on that type of stuff. And ultimately, we were coming back to you to say, like, hey, here's our plan. This is what we need to do to move forward. This is our recommendation. And that was a really good exercise, not only for the team to kind of absorb the different tools and trends and how things were being done in the industry, but also having in the back of their mind of what the needs were to make sure that we check them all off and we could make a strong case for, let's really give this a shot.
We were looking at a way that we could quickly transfer, from Figma right into a fully coded HTML. And I think we tried at least one, maybe two softwares, right? And none of them were perfect. And like, that's okay. If the solution doesn't fit the problem, don't try to jam it in. Like, we talk about this all the time. It's okay to fail and it's okay to have an idea and be like, wow, this new tool seems like it'd be a great fit for my business. Get a free trial. Turns out it's not. That's okay. And we have to be comfortable with, not everything you try is going to be transformational. You just have to fail fast and then move on to figure out what the next thing is.
How do you think people can get their leadership to support initiatives like that and to buy into things like that? You were great about supporting innovation, backing the time to do that research and look into more efficient ways of working. I was as well. For people who need to broach that conversation, how do you go about something like that?
For me, like, if we're talking about like the use of tools and potentially bringing in a new tool, to me, and it does depend on the size of your organization, right? Like for smaller organizations, I think it's a lot simpler. I think for larger organizations, there's just so many more hoops to jump through, and they definitely have like preferred vendor lists, things like that. But at least for smaller organizations where I think you can make bigger strides anyway, it's looking at the tool, but then picking up the phone and getting a demo, right? And then during that time, negotiate like a free trial. Even if that free trial is just like a couple of weeks for you to put some data in, or they can give you a version, right? But play around with it and see if it's a good fit for your business. I find that most senior leaders can get behind a small test as you pitch it. Like, here's what the potential upside is going to be of this tool. And I remember putting together, like, it could be a potential 2 FTE save. Like, that's meaningful for the business. And there's really no risk in doing a 2-week free trial, or ours was 30 days. I can't remember, right? You sign up for it, you see if it works. It doesn't work, we're committed to finding another way. You kind of trash out that system and then you look for something else. It really goes down to like, what's the tangible benefit, right? When we implemented Jitter, remember Jitter? It very quickly animated things. I think you and your team went out and sourced that. How much time were we spending between agency dollars and creatives to animate things, right? It was taking like 8 hours to do something that now Jitter did in 40 seconds. It's those type of things. And as a result, we didn't necessarily have to then keep increasing our headcount as we did more and more animation.
Yeah. We can introduce newer, better creative and different approaches to execution while also saving time. That is a huge unlock and an instance where everybody wins. Being able to make the case and kind of say, to your point, here are the upsides. Here's how we can maximize our resources or maximize our workflows or processes or optimize them. The other thing too is like, even if something seems impossible, it's too expensive, someone will never go for it, we're just not there yet, I don't think that's a reason to shy away from sharing it with your team, your senior leaders. That's something to aspire to. And almost like a bar to set, like, hey, we ultimately want to get here. How do we step our way into that? So I always encourage my team and just anyone to share, regardless of if it's super aspirational or expensive or may not be possible in this moment, because you never know how you could get there in the future. It's something to work towards and definitely shows that you're staying on top of what's going on.
Yeah, I always say I'd rather have somebody say, hey, there's this new tool and I'd love to try it out. Even if it doesn't work, that we can try it out. I would rather have somebody out there looking and saying this could potentially be good, even if we either vet it and don't go with it, or look at it and are like, I don't really think this speaks to problems that we need to be solving right now. Mm-hmm. You want somebody who's out there consuming the content and bringing those ideas and making an attempt to apply them. I think if you're not out there looking at tools to make your job easier or to make it more efficient, you're complacent. Complacency is a bad place to be, especially right now with how quickly technology is moving. You don't want to be complacent and comfortable. You need to be out there learning.
The industry right now is no place for mediocrity. That is for sure.
Fair enough.
I think to wrap this up and sum it up in my Spark notes, there's obviously a lot of content out there. It's hard to keep up. Let's all call a spade a spade. It can easily become overwhelming. There's this pressure to keep up because if you don't, you're going to be irrelevant. And then who are you? Like, do you even have expertise? Are you an industry expert anymore if you can't keep up with things? How do you fit it into your day? What are you consuming? What are you doing with it after you consume it? Are you sharing it? There's so many different aspects to this conversation, but I think if I was to boil it down, it would be to consume content in a way that works best for you. Don't invest time in something that may not be for you. Do take some actionable steps or do some type of short research. Sign up for the newsletter, the trial, if you find something that you think is a nice little gem. And then share it with other people. I find that I learn so much just from talking to other people, hearing their use cases, how they do things, what their processes are. Like, I think there's a lot of value in just communicating with your network, paying attention to what brands are doing. So although it might be overwhelming, you can kind of filter through how to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about a couple of people, right? Like Matt Davies, Simon Taylor. I would ask our listeners too, like in the comments, who are people that you get and trust, either podcasts or, people who are writing content, people you follow on LinkedIn, people you follow on other socials, like who are giving you content that you find is relevant, meaningful, and that you're sharing with others or that they're your go-to. Like, I would love to see what other people are doing. I'm always looking to branch out.
I think I would also love to know, are you doing anything with it? Like, to your point, after you consume it, even if you think it's great, what are you then doing with it? I would love to know if you guys take any next steps or try it out, take it for a little test drive. Would love to know what you do with the good stuff that you find.
Absolutely.
Try your best to keep up with it. Find those sources that you love, save them, be open to new things. Trying out new things, learning new things is only going to benefit you in the long run. So definitely something worth investing in.
I think that's right? Be intentional about what you consume and carve out time so that you have time to consume what you think is relevant for you. And then most importantly, if you're consuming this information, you're spending the time, figure out how to apply it. Right? To your job, to your life, right? It could even be you're consuming self-help stuff about building confidence. Like, make sure that whatever you're consuming is with a purpose and you're going to apply it to your life in some way, shape, or form. Your job, your life, your kids, I don't know, right? But if you're intentional about what you're doing and you know what you want to change or what you want to influence, it's going to drive you in the right direction. To me, that's one of the most important things is like, don't just carve out time and listen to crap because you're going to be exactly where you are. Like, be intentional about what you're trying to consume, what you're trying to learn, and have an idea in your mind of what you might be able to do and how you might be able to apply it.
You just said all of my thoughts so much better than I did. So thank you for boiling that down and giving the perfect spark notes to sum this one up. If you have any questions, thoughts, topics, go to marketingperspective.com to submit whatever you might want us to talk about, riff on. Make sure to subscribe, like, follow, save, download, wherever you like to listen to your podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. Hopefully you learned something. If not, maybe at least you're entertained. We'll see y'all next week, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.